Unexpected encounters. Priya Mathur adjusted her second-hand cocktail dress for the fifth time that evening, feeling painfully conspicuous among Mumbai's elite. The crystal ballroom of the Grand Imperial Hotel glittered with chandeliers that probably cost more than her annual salary at the struggling Mumbai Chronicle. Her editor had been clear: get an exclusive on the city's most secretive philanthropic event or don't bother coming back to the office tomorrow. Champagne, ma'am? A server appeared with a silver tray. No thank you, Priya replied, clutching her small voice recorder. She couldn't afford a clouded mind tonight. Scanning the room, she noted the familiar faces of politicians, film stars, and business magnates, all people who had ignored her interview requests for months. After an hour of polite rebuffs and condescending smiles, Priya retreated to a secluded balcony overlooking the Arabian Sea. The cool night air was a welcome relief from the suffocating perfumes and pretense inside. Escaping too? A deep voice startled her. Priya turned to find a man leaning against the railing. Tall with thoughtful eyes, he wore a simple black suit that somehow looked different from the ostentatious tuxedos inside. No diamond cufflinks or designer watch, just a plain silver timepiece that caught the moonlight. Is it that obvious? She asked, only to a fellow escapee. His smile seemed genuine. I'm Vikram, Priya Mathur, Mumbai Chronicle. Ah, a journalist. Here to expose all our secrets? There was no malice in his tone, only gentle teasing. Just trying to do my job, she sighed, though no one inside seems interested in talking to someone from a small newspaper. Their loss, Vikram said. Small newspapers often tell the truest stories. For the next hour they talked as the party continued without them. Vikram asked about her work with genuine interest. Her stories about local communities, the environmental series she'd written last year, her dreams of investigative journalism that mattered. And you? Priya finally asked. What brings you to this display of wealth and ego? Vikram looked out at the sea. Obligation, mostly. Some of these people fund projects that help others. You work in charity. Something like that. He changed the subject smoothly. Tell me about the story that made you become a journalist. By the time Priya glanced at her watch, she'd missed most of the event. I should go. I haven't gotten a single quote for my article. Vikram reached into his pocket and handed her a business card. Simple white with just a phone number. Maybe this will help. Call this tomorrow. You'll get your story. Before she could ask more, a commotion erupted inside. Phones began buzzing and attendees gathered around screens. What's happening? Priya asked. Journalist instincts. Firing. The Kapoor Foundation just anonymously donated 50 million rupees to rebuild the Dharavi Community School. After the fire, an excited woman announced. Nearby. Priya's eyes widened. This was her headline. A mysterious donation at the exact event she was covering. When she turned back to thank Vikram for the card, the balcony was empty. All that remained was the card in her hand and the lingering feeling that something significant had just begun. Hidden Truths, the story about the anonymous Kapoor Foundation donation became Priya's first front-page byline. Her editor, Rajesh, had actually smiled, a rare occurrence in the Chronicle's cramped offices. Whatever source you cultivated at that gala, keep them close, he said, tapping her article. This is the kind of exclusive we need to stay afloat. Priya fingered the plain business card in her pocket. She'd called the number the day after the gala, half expecting it to be fake. Instead, a polite assistant had provided her with comprehensive details about the Kapoor Foundation's donation, complete with quotes from trustees. No mention of Vikram, though. 3 weeks later, Priya stood in the pouring monsoon rain, notebook getting steadily soaked as she reported on the flooding in Govandi's slum areas. The municipal authorities had promised drainage improvements for years, but each monsoon brought the same devastation. You should take this before your notes dissolve completely. The voice was unmistakable. Vikram stood beside her, holding out an umbrella. Unlike her drenched state, he looked relatively dry in simple jeans and a dark blue raincoat. What are you doing here? Priya asked, accepting the umbrella with surprise. Same as you, I imagine. Seeing how bad the flooding is, Priya raised an eyebrow. Most people who attend charity galas don't actually show up in disaster zones. I'm not most people. His smile was warm despite the chilly rain. Are you getting what you need for your story? Before she could answer, a commotion erupted nearby. A makeshift shelter housing several families had begun to collapse under the weight of water. Without hesitation, Vikram rushed toward it with Priya close behind. For the next 2 hours, they worked alongside residents to reinforce structures and move belongings to higher ground. Priya noticed how Vikram spoke to everyone with the same respect he'd shown her at the gala. No condescension, no savior complex, just genuine concern and practical help. His hands were as mud-stained as hers by the time the immediate crisis had passed. "You're good at this," she said, as they shared a cup of chai offered by a grateful resident. "Most volunteers show up once with cameras, then disappear." "I'm not a volunteer," he said simply. "Just someone who believes problems aren't solved from boardrooms." Their paths crossed again the following week at a community library opening in Bandra, then at a women's vocational training center in Andheri. Each time Vikram appeared without fanfare, helping quietly before disappearing when official photographers arrived. "Are you following me, or am I following you?" Priya joked during their fourth unexpected meeting, this time at a free medical camp. "Maybe our priorities align," he replied, helping her organize patient registration forms. Over cups of street-side cutting chai and walks through Mumbai's chaotic beauty, Priya found herself sharing more than she had with anyone in years. Her father's early death, her mother's struggle to educate her, her determination to use journalism to give voice to the voiceless. Vikram listened intently, offering insights about systemic problems that revealed a deep understanding of social issues. Yet whenever she asked about his personal life, he redirected with skilled subtlety. "You know everything about me, but you're still a mystery," she challenged him one evening as they walked along Marine Drive, the Queen's necklace of streetlights glimmering against the darkening sea. "Sometimes it's easier to be just a person. No history, no expectations." Something in his tone hinted at a weight he carried. "That's not how real connections work," Priya countered gently. His phone buzzed with a message. Reading it, Vikram's expression changed. "I need to go." "I'm sorry." As weeks turned into 2 months of this strange friendship, Priya began researching the Kapoor Foundation more thoroughly for a feature article. Founded by tech innovator Rohit Kapoor, it was now run by his reclusive son who had transformed it from a tax shelter into one of India's most effective philanthropic organizations. Oddly, there were almost no photographs of the current Kapoor heir in public records. That evening, as Priya scrolled through financial documents in her tiny apartment, her phone pinged with a news alert. "Reclusive billionaire Vikram Kapoor makes rare appearance at tech conference." The accompanying photo made her coffee cup slip from her fingers, shattering on the floor. The man she knew simply as Vikram stared back at her from her screen, now identified as one of the wealthiest men in India. Shattered illusions. The headline glared at Priya from her screen. Tech titan Vikram Kapoor announces revolutionary AI healthcare initiative. His face, the same face that had laughed with her over street food and helped elderly residents during the floods, now looked back at her with the polished confidence of a billionaire CEO addressing the world. Priya's mind raced through every conversation, every shared moment, searching for clues she should have noticed. The mysterious phone calls he'd step away to take. How he seemed to know city officials by name. The way certain doors magically opened when he was around. She'd attributed it all to charisma, to connections made through his charity work. Not once had she imagined he was Vikram Kapoor, the notoriously private heir to Kapoor Technologies, a man whose net worth exceeded the GDP of small nations. Her phone vibrated. Vikram's number. She let it ring out, then watched as a message appeared. "Priya, I can explain. Please meet me." 3 more calls came before she finally answered. 2 months, she said flatly. 2 months of pretending to be someone you're not. "I never pretended." His voice was tight with tension. "I just didn't tell you everything." "That's called lying by omission," Priya shot back. "You watched me struggle with rent, heard me talk about growing up counting rupees for school books, all while you probably had a gold-plated penthouse somewhere." "It's not gold-plated," he attempted humor. Falling painfully flat, "This isn't funny. Vikram, or should I call you Mr. Kapoor now? Was I just some poverty tourism experience for you? A fascinating glimpse into how the other half lives? Priya, please, meet me at our usual spot by Marine Drive in an hour. I'll tell you everything." She almost refused, but found herself at the familiar bench overlooking the Arabian Sea exactly 60 minutes later. The same salty breeze, the same crashing waves. But nothing felt the same anymore. Vikram arrived without the driver or security that surely accompanied India's most eligible billionaire bachelor. He wore the simple clothes she was accustomed to seeing him in, jeans and a plain button-down shirt. "Thank you for coming," he said, keeping a respectful distance. "I'm a journalist. Information is my weakness." Priya crossed her arms. "Start talking." He sat beside her, eyes fixed on the horizon. "My father built Kapoor Technologies from nothing. Everyone expected his son to be just like him, ruthless, brilliant, focused solely on profit. When he died 3 years ago, I inherited not just a company, but an identity I never wanted." "Poor little rich boy," Priya muttered. "I deserve that," he acknowledged. "But the truth is, I spent years trying to transform the foundation from a tax shelter into something meaningful. The board members, my father's old friends, they tolerated my phase, as they called it. But they didn't understand why I needed to see problems firsthand rather than from reports. So you created this secret identity to escape your privileged life?" "No, to find something real." His voice softened. "The night we met, I'd slipped away from my security team. I was supposed to give a speech about the foundation's work, but the words felt hollow. Then I met you, someone who cared about the truth, who saw through the facade of that entire event. For the first time in years, I was just Vikram, not the Kapoor heir with 1,000 expectations." Priya remembered how comfortable she'd felt with him that night, how genuine he'd seemed compared to everyone else. "Every time we met after that was intentional on my part," he admitted. "I found out what stories you were covering and made sure to be there. Not to manipulate you, but because I couldn't stop thinking about you. How am I supposed to believe anything you say now?" Priya stood up abruptly. "You've been living a double life, Vikram. What else aren't you telling me?" "Nothing that matters." He reached for her hand, which she pulled away. "My wealth, my company, those things don't define me. But they define your world," Priya countered. "A world that people like me only see from the outside. Did you ever think what would happen when your real life inevitably crashed into our, whatever this was?" Before he could answer, a sleek black car pulled up nearby. A man in a suit approached respectfully. "Mr. Kapoor, I apologize for the interruption, but the board has called an emergency meeting. The American acquisition is in jeopardy." Vikram's jaw tightened. "Tell them I'll be there in 30 minutes. They've been waiting for 2 hours, sir." The contrast between their worlds couldn't have been more starkly illustrated. While Priya worried about making rent, Vikram delayed decisions that affected thousands of jobs and millions of rupees. "I have to go," he said reluctantly. "Of course you do." Priya gathered her bag. "Go back to your real life, Mr. Kapoor. Clearly that's where you belong." As she walked away, the weight of disappointment crushed her chest. Not because he was rich, but because what she'd thought was real had been built on a foundation of half-truths. Her phone buzzed with a message from her editor. "Budget meeting tomorrow. Prepare for bad news." The Chronicle was struggling like most print publications. Their building had already been sold to developers, their staff halved in the past year. Tomorrow would bring more cuts, more uncertainty. Unlike Vikram, she didn't have the luxury of walking away from her problems. Worlds colliding. The Mumbai Chronicle's newsroom buzzed with nervous energy. Rajesh stood at the front, his perpetual frown deeper than usual. "I'll be direct," he announced. "We have 3 weeks before our funding runs out completely. The building sale bought us time, but not enough." Priya gripped her notepad tightly. The Chronicle wasn't just her employer. It was her family. For 5 years, these cramped desks and overworked journalists had been her home, championing stories that mainstream media ignored. "We need a miracle or a wealthy investor," Rajesh continued, "and since miracles are in short supply, I'm open to suggestions." 3 days after the devastating meeting, Priya sat at her desk, staring at half-finished articles while ignoring the 16 missed calls from Vikram. She'd thrown herself into work, covering every community story she could find, as if enough words on the page might somehow save the Chronicle. "Mathur," Rajesh called from his office. "There's someone here to see you, expecting a source." Priya was stunned to find Neha Sharma, the formidable CEO of Digitech Media Group, one of India's largest media conglomerates. "Ms. Mathur, your reputation for integrity precedes you," Neha said, perfectly manicured hand extended. "I've been following your work, particularly your series on water access in marginalized communities." Before Priya could process this surreal encounter, Neha continued. Digitech is launching a new investigative journalism division. We want you to lead it. Twice your current salary, full creative control, and resources you can only dream of here. The offer was everything Priya had ever wanted professionally. But the timing felt suspicious. Why now? She asked bluntly. The Chronicle's financial troubles aren't public knowledge. Neha's polished smile didn't waver. Let's just say we have excellent market intelligence. This is about your talent, Ms. Mathur. The offer stands regardless of what happens to this. She glanced around the weathered office, the institution. After Neha left, Priya sat motionless at her desk. The offer felt like both salvation and betrayal. She could continue her work with proper resources, but abandoning the Chronicle felt like leaving family during crisis. That evening, as she walked home through Mumbai's busy streets, a familiar car pulled alongside her. The window lowered to reveal Vikram's driver. Ms. Mathur, Mr. Kapoor requests a moment of your time. Tell Mr. Kapoor I'm not interested in being his charity case, she replied, continuing to walk. The car crawled beside her. He said you would say that. He also said to tell you this isn't about you or him. It's about the Chronicle. 20 minutes later, Priya found herself in a private room at the Tata Library, neutral territory. Vikram sat alone at a table without the entourage billionaires typically maintained. Thank you for coming, he said, rising as she entered. Make it quick. I have deadlines. Priya remained standing. The Chronicle is being targeted for acquisition by Digitech Media, he stated without preamble. They've been systematically buying struggling independent publications, stripping them for parts and absorbing their digital properties. Priya's mind flashed to Neha's unexpected job offer. How do you know this? Because they approached Kapoor Technologies for partnership in the venture 3 months ago. I declined. He pushed a folder across the table. They've acquired 17 publications in the last year. 15 no longer exist in any recognizable form. Priya scanned the documents, her journalist's eye catching the pattern immediately. Why are you showing me this? Because I respect what the Chronicle stands for, and because, he hesitated, I know what it means to you. So what? You'll swoop in with your billions and save us? Her voice hardened. Another project for the great Vikram Kapoor? No, he said firmly. I'm not offering to buy the Chronicle. This wasn't what she expected. Then why are we here? Because I found another solution, but it requires your help. He outlined a plan involving a media trust structure that would secure the Chronicle's independence while providing sustainable funding. Why would you do this? Priya finally sat down, confusion replacing anger. Because independent journalism matters. Because voices like yours need to be heard. He paused. And because I've spent my life being defined by my wealth rather than my actions? The board wants me to focus on profit margins and shareholder value, not community impact. As he spoke, Priya realized he was dressed formally, the billionaire businessman rather than the Vikram she'd known. There's something else you should know, he said gravely. If I proceed with this plan, I'll be risking my position. The board has made it clear they want me to stop my community adventures and focus on the company. Saving an anti-establishment newspaper would be the final straw. Why would you risk everything you have? Because these past months with you showed me what matters. You judge people by their actions, not their bank accounts. You believe in truth above convenience. His eyes held hers. The man you met. That's who I want to be, not who my father's legacy demands I become. Before she could respond, his phone lit up with his assistant's name. The board meeting is starting, he said, standing. They're voting on whether to remove me as CEO if I proceed with independent projects against their recommendation. Priya realized the magnitude of his choice. Vikram, your father built that company, and I need to decide what kind of legacy I want to build. He moved toward the door, then turned back. The trust documents are in the folder. Whether you involve me or not, use them to save the Chronicle. As he reached for the door, Priya found herself speaking. What you did, hiding your identity, was wrong. But why you did it? She struggled to articulate the complex emotions. I think I understand now. That's more than I deserve, he said softly. For what it's worth, those moments with you were the most honest of my life, even if you didn't have all the facts. After he left, Priya opened the folder to find not only the trust documents but evidence of Digitech's predatory practices that would make an explosive story, ammunition to fight back. At the bottom was a handwritten note. Some truths need to be told whatever the cost. She realized she was holding the power to save the Chronicle and potentially end Vikram's career as he knew it. The choice was entirely hers. Bridges built dawn broke over Mumbai as Priya stood in the Chronicle's doorway, watching her colleagues arrive one by one. Each face represented years of dedication to truth in an era where it was increasingly commodified. For 2 days she had pored over Vikram's documents, researching every detail, verifying every claim. The evidence was irrefutable. Digitech wasn't just acquiring struggling papers. They were orchestrating their struggles through targeted advertising blockades and distribution interference. "Everyone here?" Rajesh called out, interrupting her thoughts. "Let's make our final week count." "Actually," Priya stepped forward, "we need to talk." Over the next hour, she laid out the trust proposal, explaining how it could secure their independence. She carefully omitted Vikram's name, presenting it as a structure she'd researched. "This is legally sound," noted Varun, their legal correspondent, "but who would fund such a trust? We're not exactly attractive to investors." "That's where this comes in." Priya distributed copies of her meticulously researched exposé on Digitech's systematic dismantling of independent journalism. "This is our insurance policy and our statement of purpose." The room fell silent as they read. "This would burn bridges with the biggest media conglomerate in the country," Rajesh said finally. "Yes," Priya acknowledged, "but it would also show what the Chronicle stands for. If we're going down, let's go down fighting for something that matters." By afternoon, the decision was unanimous. The exposé would run tomorrow, consequences be damned. Outside the office, Priya finally returned Vikram's calls from days earlier, but reached only his voicemail. News alerts on her phone revealed why. Kapoor Technologies board meeting extends to third day. CEO position in jeopardy. The following morning, the Chronicle's bombshell story hit newsstands. Save Independent Media began trending within hours. Competing outlets, sensing blood in the water, amplified the accusations against Digitech. By evening, their stock had dropped 12%. Priya had expected professional consequences, threatening calls, perhaps legal notices. What she hadn't expected was Neha Sharma herself storming into the Chronicle's offices, face contorted with fury. "You've made a serious mistake," she hissed at Priya. "When we acquire this worthless rag and you'll never work in media again." "That's where you're wrong," came a voice from the doorway. The room fell silent as Vikram Kapoor walked in, flanked by attorneys. Gone was any pretense of the simple man Priya had known. This was Vikram in his full corporate power, the tech billionaire whose name opened doors and struck fear in boardrooms. "Ms. Sharma," he said coolly, "I suggest you consult your legal team before making further threats. The Chronicle isn't for sale, to you or anyone else." Neha's composure slipped. "What are you doing here, Kapoor? This doesn't concern your technology empire." "Actually, it does." He placed a document on the table. "As of this morning, I've personally guaranteed the funding for the independent media trust that now owns the Chronicle. Any attempt at a hostile acquisition would trigger antitrust investigations that I'm certain you'd prefer to avoid." After Neha stormed out, the newsroom erupted in confused celebration. Amid the chaos, Priya pulled Vikram into Rajesh's empty office. "What happened with your board?" she demanded. Exhaustion lined his face. "I stepped down as CEO. You what?" The magnitude of his sacrifice hit her. "Vikram, that company is your birthright. And now my sister will run it brilliantly." He smiled tiredly. "I'm still the majority shareholder, but I'm no longer bound by the board's restrictions on my extracurricular activities. You gave up everything. I chose something better." His eyes held hers. "The trust is structured so that I have no editorial control. The Chronicle remains fully independent. I'm just a guarantor." "Why would you do that?" "Because some things matter more than power or legacy." He moved toward the door. "The details are with your legal team. I won't take up any more of your time. Wait." Priya caught his arm. The anger that had fueled her for days had transformed into something more complex. "You could have saved your position. You could have bought us outright and been the hero. Instead, you chose the one solution that protected our independence but cost you your role. I learned from a brilliant journalist that actions speak louder than wealth." He smiled sadly. "Goodbye, Priya." 3 weeks later, the Chronicle was thriving under its new trust structure. Priya's series on media consolidation had earned national attention, with regulators beginning investigations into Digitech's practices. Yet something felt unfinished. On a rainy evening, Priya found herself outside a modest apartment building in Bandra. The address she'd discovered was Vikram's actual residence. Not the mansion everyone assumed he lived in. He opened the door, surprise evident on his face. "Priya?" The apartment behind him was simply furnished, books lining the walls. Nothing like the opulent home a billionaire should have. "You never actually lived like a billionaire, did you?" She realized aloud. "The fancy penthouse was my father's. I kept it for appearances." He stepped aside to let her in. "Would you like some tea?" As the rain drummed against the windows, they sat across from each other, the weight of unspoken words between them. "I've been thinking about bridges," Priya finally said. "Bridges?" "Yes, how they connect different worlds without changing either one." She met his gaze. "Our worlds are different, Vikram. That's a reality we can't ignore. But maybe they don't have to be separate." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that the man who helped during the floods, who listened to elderly residents' stories, who risked everything for journalism he believes in, that man is real, regardless of his bank account." She took a deep breath. "And that's the man I'd like to know better, even though I hid the truth from you." "You hid facts, not truth." Priya reached across the table, her fingers tentatively touching his. "Your actions revealed who you really are. It just took me time to see it." "So where do we go from here?" he asked, hope cautiously emerging in his voice. "We build something new, something honest," she smiled. "No shortcuts, no assumptions, no hiding. Just two people finding their way, one step at a time." Outside, the monsoon rain continued to fall, washing away the boundaries that had once seemed insurmountable. Different worlds could coexist, she realized, when bridges were built with intention and care. In the small apartment filled with books and possibilities, Priya and Vikram began again, this time with every truth laid bare and every path forward their own to choose.